Well, we've made the trek out to probably not only one of the fastest growing areas in Brisbane or in Queensland, probably indeed Australia. We're out at Springfield United for our Club in Focus series this week, and we're talking to the club president, Scott Harding. Scott, as I said, it's a rapidly emerging region over here, a relatively new club. Tell us firstly about some of the history of the club and how it came to be formed.
Well, it was actually formed as a City League club, I believe. It was a group of friends who just formed a Western Suburbs club. So Ryan Ginnard was the original president, and he's moved to America now, of course. But we have the Ryan Ginnard medal that we give out to our capmen at the end of the year in honour of his inaugural presidency. And it just grew from there. So we ended up with some youth teams coming in. Tom, who's slightly off camera here, Tom Webb, our media officer, he actually was one of the first juniors who came through the club, as did Holly McQueen, actually, who's, of course, becoming quite a name in her own right these days. So, look, it's really, really nice to see the junior base grow. And then I joined probably in 2011, so 3 or 4 years into the club's existence. And we had about, at that stage, 150 members, I would imagine. Now we have 900. And that's actually tripled in the last 3 years. And the vast majority of that is probably junior growth. So I'd say we're probably still a junior club finding its feet in the senior level. But look, it's really exciting. And obviously with this new complex that we've been in now for 2 years, up at Springfield Sports Complex, we're very lucky to have the facilities that we have so we can continue to grow.
That's probably an important point to touch on, that in previous years before coming up here to the complex, which you're in your second year here of, you're probably limited in the terms of how far you could grow. What opportunities has coming to this complex opened up for the club?
Well, it's allowed us to run programs such as the Brisbane Rural Academy here on a Sunday. We're in partnership with them currently. We've been able to engage the local area. There's a lot of residents that live in Spring Mountain, just behind the grounds here, and they've all joined the club, which is really nice. So, and I know Ripley has a similar catchment area to draw from, which is really good. So there'll be another club that grows quite exponentially in the coming years. But we've had that existing player base of about 400 or 500 players, and then of course we've virtually doubled that now because people see us as, I suppose, quite a centralised point in this local area. So if you look at where we are and compare to, say, the north and south of Brisbane, it's relatively easy to access us. So we're starting to draw players from wider catchments now as well.
So in terms of growth, now that you have this opportunity, what do you see, what sort of target, are there any sort of targets that the club might have going forward in terms of how far you can grow, or is there any sort of capacity issues that you might have?
Funny you should mention that. That's an ongoing discussion that we have with Ipswich City Council. So there are actually some fields just below us here on the netball court that Western Pride currently lease. And there's some availability potentially on there for us to use that as well. But we like to work with partner clubs in the local area. So that's an ongoing discussion that we have with council at this time. They haven't committed to huge growth for our numbers yet, but hopefully we can keep lobbying that, and that can happen in the near future.
And just looking at your sponsorship wall behind you, you've obviously got some great local support. How important has it been to bring local sponsors on, and how have you gone about doing that in trying to make them feel part of the club?
Well, thank you very much for noticing that, actually. Well, again, Tom and also Mark Elric, who was our operations manager in the last couple of years, and Paul Cohen and a few of the other members of our board have been really, really quite tireless in lobbying local support, and it's very, very important to represent local business and local members, and obviously they're obviously part of the club as well, perhaps as parents, perhaps as coaches, perhaps as players. And I know that a lot of other clubs leverage support that way, but we're obviously learning, and we're never too proud to learn. And we're very proud of the sponsors that we have actually managed to achieve so far, and hopefully we service them well.
As I said before, plenty of growth opportunities here. The Brisbane Lions are building their training facility down the road as well. Where do you think you might see the club in 5 to 10 years?
Hopefully we're one of the big players in the football Brisbane scene. I mean, look, we need to make sure that junior base stays. The retention rate's really important. And whilst we're realistic, we understand Lions is quite close by, and we would expect, players, if they wish to push to higher levels than where we currently are, we would understand that completely. But it's interesting to see how many players leave the club but then come back as well. So the grass isn't always greener. If we can continue to develop that player base, as I said, it translates into senior players, and we're starting to get our first under-18 players that have been at the club for a few years pushing into the senior setup, then I can't see any reason why we can't be a really, really big player in this local area.
I'm sure bigger and better things to come for the club. As you said, plenty of growth opportunities with a massive burgeoning community, not just here but out in the local areas. It's going in around Ipswich, so we wish Springfield United all the best for the future.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to also thank my board, because they work tirelessly. I'm very lucky to be in the position I'm in because really I'm just the quarterback. But the honest truth is they put in a lot of work and a lot of effort behind the scenes, particularly my vice president, Mark Gill. He really, really does. He's a real club man.